Hello, everyone. Welcome to the APO Productivity Talk, interviews, discussion on the current and emerging trends on productivity enhancement and innovation in the areas of manufacturing, agriculture, public sector, service sector, with experts, with the speakers, top official, government, policymakers, academia from Asia and around the world. So I'm Zainuri from the APO Secretariat. Today is a very special day also for APO. Today is the 11th May, the founding day of APO for the past 61 years. So for the productivity talk today, the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly impacted working styles, disrupting when and where and how actually people perform their jobs. So with remote work becoming the new norm, it changes the way employees work, affected the interpersonal relationship, teamwork, collaboration, which directly affect the performance individual as well as productivity. So in this session today, with the topic Reimagining Work in the New Norm, our guest speaker, Azim Pawanchik, innovation strategist, author, as well as consultant, will share his insights and views on how people can adjust and how the organization can modify or can change, quickly adapt to these new working styles. Hello, Azim. How are you?
Hi,
Thank you for
Zainuri, how
joining
are you?
us. Hi. So
Thank
how's
you for
Kuala
having
Lumpur?
me here today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Azim. So, Azim, before I invite you to share your presentation as well as your views to our audience today, so maybe I would like to start first to get your opinion with our main topic that we are going to discuss later on. So, Azim, as you aware and everyone is aware that this new working style like remote work as well as flexible working hours, hybrid approach has been started actually even before the pandemic. If you notice, some of the tech companies, they have started this working style before. But when the pandemic happens, not only the tech companies, now everyone has to change. Even the government sector has to change. So in your opinions, this new working style will be lasted or it's just a temporary measure? Because you know that in some report, some news, employees already complain that this new working style make people exhausted, burnt out. So maybe you can share your opinion, Azim, please.
Okay. I think based from what I've seen in the past 1 year, the hybrid approach to working physical versus virtual work, I think it is here to stay because what I've seen in the past few months, especially, a lot of organizations have transformed where a lot of the work can be done virtually, but it will be slightly a different approach. A lot of people, they're going to opt whether they want to do a full 100% virtual, or they want to perform a hybrid work. There is actually another model where you have a co-working space or satellite offices where people can go to so that they have a proper working space outside of their home, because being stuck in the home for too long is going to be very stressful for somebody. So I would say that it depends a lot on the individual. I'll give you an example. I only see my software developer few times a month because he doesn't want to come to work, because he wants to work from home. So I see him when we are going out to eat or we are having some form of entertainment. Another interesting one which I saw is that some people have got different time zones. So 9 to 5 doesn't work anymore. So I've seen, I had some staff, they prefer to wake up late and then continue working until 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So I had to change the policy to prepare for a new norm which suits the talent. So what we need to do is not really have one set of rules, but different set which suits different character, policy, and the way organization work. That's my view, Zainuri.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Azim. So it's something that not only from the one side, which is employees need to change, at the same organization itself, the management itself has to change to adapt with this new norm. Yeah. So thank you, Azim, for your opinions, for your views on this topic So now I think we go to the what are we going to share with the viewers today, which is the reimagining the work in the new norm. I think it's very, very important for us to discuss this topic today because the pandemic is still ongoing. We are not sure when it's going to be ended, and with most of the countries are still in movement control order, in the lockdown, and in the state of emergency. So, as what you mentioned just now, it's not going to be a temporary measure, but it's going to be lasted. Maybe we don't know when until when. So, Azim, before I start to invite you to make presentation, I would like to remind our viewers out there, if you have any questions, if you have any comments or suggestions, please put in the live chat box, mention your name, mention where you're coming from, which country. So after the presentation by Azim, I will select a few questions and I will mention your name as well as your country for Azim to respond to you. So Azim, now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. All right. So before I continue further, I'd just like to have a quick introduction about myself. I used to work in chemical industry for a long time as an R&D chemist. I did a lot of work on innovation and creativity. So one of the biggest issue that I feel was that Asians especially have got a challenge when it comes to innovation because of bureaucracy, hierarchy, fear of failure. So at Alpha Catalyst, what I've been doing in the past few years is to explore how can we, as in the Asian developing countries, explore a new way of innovation. So I've been looking at what we call innovating the way you innovate. So before I begin my talk, I'd like to share this key factor. A lot of people were taken aback, surprised by a pandemic. Some call it a black swan, something which is unexpected. However, the current pandemic was actually predicted many years ago. I think it was by Bill Gates. However, not many were prepared to respond to it in a quick and efficient manner. And because of that, we can see an exponential rise of COVID over the few years. One key fact that I'd like to share today is that they are expecting a few other pandemics in the future. Why the current pandemic is so different? Because the way that it spreads is because of globalization. People are moving over freely. With the rise of pandemic cases, what I saw is also an exponential decline of businesses. So what do we do? It's very challenging. Over the past 1.5 years, we see companies like AirAsia, the share price went down, passenger traffic going down. Singapore Airlines, for example, it has the 99% drop is in business passengers. It is highly challenging. What do you do? With a loss of 1 billion and more losses coming, for example, in business travel, you can only see recovery in 2021 to 2024. So what do we do? Because if we don't have a plan, we may be in trouble. So the current pandemic not only impacts you, your work, how you live, it also impacts organization in terms of strategy, policy, processes, and operations. So right now, we are in this zone, what we call flux zone, where there's a lot of anxiety, uncertainty. We don't know what's next. Things could become worse for us in the future. With the decline in economy, there will be no work or a salary cut. There will be much more automation. But many of us are hoping for things to go back to normal, to recover. However, there is maybe a different future that we need to think about, something that is beneficial for us in the longer term. What I saw, Zainuri, in the past few months, a lot of people are really hoping that things will go back to normal, hoping that there will be no more lockdown, pandemic will be over in 6 months, 1 year. So much uncertainty. One example is in the space of gym. Many gyms in Malaysia had to shut down. So many tried to go online, and once things recovered slightly, many gyms opened back. But what they realized that the customers are not coming back because they are scared And many customers are used to certain lifestyle. They're used to going out running, or they buy their equipment and work out at home. So this is where, if you as a business owner is thinking that you hope things will go back to normal, you need to revisit. Is your business model agile? Is your business model is what is demanded from the customer now because of a shift in lifestyle? We need to think about work, because my talk today will cover those who are in the corporate sector, SMEs, or even government organization. But we need to think about how would work look like in the future, the post-pandemic, or even next 1 to 2 years. There's so much uncertainty. Back in 2019, December 2019, my organization, together with the people from Future Agenda, Tim Jones. Future Agenda is one of the biggest think tank global foresight around the world. He came to Malaysia together with Alejandro. He's from Wakana, the biggest gig economy platform from South America. And we had Ru Xiao from Common Ground, the biggest co-working space in Malaysia. We came in to explore what would work look like in the future because of digital. At this point, we were not discussing about, the impact of pandemic. We were just thinking, how would things be? I'll share with you some of my key findings, because it relates a lot to the pandemic. So you can actually go to the website and download some of the key discussion from there. But I saw 3 things which impacts future of work. Number 1 is new competencies for leaders and employee. Second one, technology and digital. Third one is new structure and organization. Please take note, these insights, this discussion was done during the pre-pandemic era. We're just thinking about things from an impact of digital. So this is already been captured by WEF and many other think tanks or organizations. There's a need to look at new roles, but there are vulnerable roles like lawyers, bankers, lawyers, or even think now could be manager. So one of the biggest impact of digital is the need for reskilling and upskilling and reinventing new roles as automation becomes more mainstream. Second trend that we saw, with the rise of technology and digital, there's a lot more human to machine interaction. There's a lot more human being led or managed by remote supervisors or by bots. So for example, for me, when I'm in the morning, I'll be in my room talking to my Echo or my Siri, asking, what's my appointment for today? Or play me the next playlist, or please set my appointment for a next meeting. So we are so used to use digital tools to manage our personal life, and it's going to replace much more our work life too. So this is one of the trends that we saw, automated support with digital. Third one, I think, which is something much more significant, we also see with the rise of digital tech that companies will now focus much more on flexible work. So you are no longer talking about work from home or work from office, it's working from anywhere. And time also doesn't matter anymore, because as far as the organization is concerned, you deliver and it can be tracked digitally. We also see a shift that people no longer working as a role. I'm a finance manager, etc., but I am working in projects. You have cross-functional teams. Lastly, one of the key trends that we look back in 2019 is a concept called Organization 3.0, where there's a new flatter form of organization. It's project-based, collaborative, and it's quite porous, where external parties are collaborating internally, and there's a lot of data transfer or API happening. So you remember this is in 2019. And when we were exploring these trends, we were thinking, maybe it'll take maybe 3 to 5 years before it reaches Malaysia. Because based on this chart, technology moves fast, individual moves a bit faster, but business, policy, and regulations, it's a bit slower. So when we had that discussion, we said, we don't have to worry. Maybe 5 years, 10 years, maybe even longer. We don't know yet. However, with the pandemic, what was a future possibility back in 2019, what we saw, it was a necessity. I don't have an idea yet what would the post-pandemic future look like for us to work, but that is something that we can discuss later with you, Zainuri. So what we saw was that because of the pandemic, suddenly regulations, policy, businesses, individuals shifted exponentially. They shifted so fast, they're trying to catch up with the pandemic. They still can't catch up because the rise of the pandemic is just so fast. There was a survey done by McKinsey. This was a report produced in WEF. They actually asked managers, how long do you think it will take for you to be ready to go for remote work or online collaboration? Many say that maybe it'll take about 1.5 years. With the pandemic, it only took them about 10 days. Another question that they asked, how long do you think before your companies will be able or ready to start investing technology, advanced technology in your operations? Many of them say, maybe it'll take about 2 years. In reality, it took them only 26 days. So you're talking about exponential shift happening at a very high rate. But I'd like to bring back to reality. Because when we talk about going digital, not everything can be digital. For example, if you're in retail, tourism, healthcare in certain sector, you need to have high physical interaction and you need to do your analog work. You need to do physical work. However, if you are a scientist, your work is still analog. You need to be in the labs, but you can have low level of interaction. And if you're doing coding, what you're producing is something digital or virtual, there's very low human interaction. Over the past few months, I've seen a shift, for example, towards telemedicine, because a lot of people are afraid to go to clinics. The number of clinics that was shut down during pandemic was quite high. In Malaysia, I think there's about 200 clinics we shut down, but they did a shift. Many focus on telemedicine, where healthcare, especially follow-up, can be done virtually or digitally. So when we talk about future of work today, when I want to reimagine, I don't want to imagine that everything is digital as well. I need to imagine if you are doing physical work, okay, whether you have a high level human interaction, there still needs to be some form of new ways of working if your work involves physical stuff. So what does it mean here? When Zainuri asked me, okay, please share my view. So this is my view. Okay, I'm not sure how ready we are on this, but we need to fuse analog work with digital work, virtual work. It means that as an individual, if you're doing physical work, analog work, you need new expertise, new tools, new expectation, new mindset, especially if you are working as a retailer, you are in a hotel industry, or you are a doctor, you are a surgeon. You need new set to live by the next few years with the pandemic. At the same time, you as a leader, you need to explore when you work, how do you lead virtually? How do you manage performance virtually as well? You need to change the way you as an individual communicate, collaborate, and learn. So what I see is that things are going to change. What we used to do virtually through meetings, etc., will now transform to digitally, especially things to do with leading, learning, managing, communicating. But certain things will continue being analog. However, okay, this is a reality, is that to move forward, we are already experiencing it, but a lot of companies, when they see that the pandemic might no longer be around, they are reverting back to the norm, going back to the old ways. We can't do everything. It's a challenge to get everything digital, to get a new norm. There are 3 key issues. First one is bureaucracies, silos, and cognitive bias. Cognitive bias relates to fear of failure, among many others. They only see things from a very short-term, not long-term perspective. Or during the pandemic, I saw many solution which been developed by companies. They are very short-term solution. They are not thinking of the unintended consequences of whatever initiative that they are doing. So my view, okay, it may seem bleak, but Zainuri and the audience, I feel there is a way forward. I love this quotation from William Gibson. He said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. I think my idea today to share with the community here is that the future is really here, something that we can borrow from the platform economies. So there's a lot that we can learn from Grab, Gojek, Airbnb, and there's so many other organizations that we can adopt and use it in our future of work, because these services are mainly by the startups. But what about a legacy organization, a company that's been around for 10 years? What about you if you are in government? How do you move forward? Let me go a little bit deeper on what is the platform economy and how it impacts our work. So I'm a fan of music. I think in the 70s, the vinyls was hot. And then I grew up in the era of cassettes. Cassette is not very good. Quality is not so good. It gets spoiled quite often. Then I move on to CDs. I have thousands of CDs at home. I hardly use it because now I prefer using Spotify or iTunes. Spotify is free if I can cope with what do you call that? The ads. Why? What the platform economy is about? It's about you having things. For example, Spotify music is curated. Things are very cheap. You subscribe to a service. Everything is connected. You not only save time, you save money, but the key thing is everything is curated. You don't have to think. There's algorithms to recommend you, oh, maybe you would like enjoy this music. So you don't have to spend too much time looking for music, buying for music. Is there 50 million songs. So the idea behind platform economy is that it has actually shifted during the pandemic, when from us having an analog lifestyle where we consume music, food, etc., of course physically, but the access to that is through our digital lifestyle, to platforms such as Zoom, Netflix, Telegram. There's so many apps that over the past 1 year has become dominant in our lifestyle. So a platform economy company, or what we call organization 3.0, for example, Grab and Uber, they are quite different. The way that they're organized is they don't have many staff. They only use staff on demand. That means they work with independent drivers or independent chefs. They also use algorithms to manage their customers and also to manage their partners. And they also use leverage assets. That means the assets for cooking, for delivering, the cars, etc. They don't own it. They tap on the consumers and also their partners' assets. So this is a very different approach towards organizing a company. Your cost will be low, but your reach is high. You can scale quickly. But to make that happen, you need to have a few key internal attributes. The first one is you need to have dashboards and interface for you to be able to connect with the external world, with APIs, with platforms. And you need to be willing to experiment and try new things to see what works, what doesn't. So this is one of the key features of an organization 3.0 or an exponential organization. But one of the key, which is challenging, is to have that autonomy, to have that trust for the employees and the customer to do the right things. So these are some of the key attributes which we see important, which the current platform economies player like Grab, Uber, Airbnb is using, which I feel is about time that we bring this into companies. I don't see many companies doing this, where you have a virtual organization, where you have projects and you have flexible working arrangement. For me, my view, in the future, we need to explore two pathways. We need to explore a new way of doing things, which is much more efficient, better for the environment, better for the community, instead of hoping things will recover back to normal. January, I'm almost done. So what I see, the way forward is to think of Work 2.0 is a platform approach towards work. What I see is that in companies, when there's a problem and an opportunity, just like you ordering on Grab, the algorithm within the company will match that to, is there any existing experts or employees who knows how to solve the problem? Or is there any ongoing projects which can solve that problem? And when somebody is working on a project, on a task, the algorithm or the person working on it could access its database for resources and technology for it to happen. A scenario would be, I'm working at home, but I need certain assets. I'm an architect. I need certain drawings and I need certain tools which is available at office, or I need to borrow from a vendor. Just go to my online platform, book that, and within 1 hour, the digital devices, the resources that I need is delivered to my home for me to be able to continue working easily. So that's a new way where I think you can combine analog and digital. We see a lot of that happening with the platform economy, but I don't see this happening yet in companies. This is a way forward. The other thing, critical thing which I saw, which is important, with a digital enabled workplace, large organization will need less meetings. Because when I look at service delivery by Grab, Uber, or BNB, I don't see the Grab drivers having a lot of meetings. I don't see them having supervisors or managers. Everything is driven by algorithms. Everything is based on performance analytics. So this is a way forward where I see in the future, in fact now, you need less management but more leadership. Management can be delegated to algorithms or software to decide, are you performing or not performing? Things are going to be real time. And with everything going online, there's a fuse between analog and digital work. Faster decision making can be made, as I've seen in the platform economy. However, the pitfall, this is going to be high pressure for your organization because you are constantly being monitored and you are constantly under pressure. In fact, one of the comments that I get from some of my clients is that as they go into digital work, nobody cares about them. They're just given one task after another. Everything is done digitally. So one of the key to move forward, I won't discuss this in detail, but what we need is what we call a strategy for the organization, not for the individual. How do we become exponential? How do we prepare the foundation for your own company, regardless whether you are a multinational company or you're a government agency, to be an exponential organization? One example I have here is a government agency in Malaysia. They are in charge of creating the national regulatory sandbox for new technology, where they're looking at technologies including drones, automotive vehicle, and robotics. So they have their own platforms, and what they do is they don't hire their own people. They use staff on demand. They will bring in people who have expertise in regulations and tech on a short project basis to solve the problem that they need, and then they are done. And they use open innovation and hackathons to get ideas from the crowd on what are the issues, what are the needs, and what are the solutions that they are facing in terms of drones, robotics, or any other areas. That way, they are cutting down the needs for meeting. All is managed through a platform. They have algorithms to match people with tech, people with problem. And within the platform, they have gamification to allow for people to interact, contribute. All their contribution will be acknowledged, because one of the biggest issue in many companies, people don't see your digital contribution. So examples from companies, maybe Designori, I'll share after the session. Now, this is my last slide. So what does it mean? I think my view to move forward is that as individual, for you to thrive in the state of flux, there's a lot of uncertainty that we are facing. You need to start by looking at data. What data do I have? And then from there, come up with fresh ideas, fresh insight. That's the first thing. Second layer is you need to focus on, regardless whether you are working virtually or you're working face to face, you need to focus on building trust and relationship. That's the first criteria. And secondly, focus on virtual work on collaboration. So many virtual tools out there, for example, Miro, Trello, that you can collaborate online easily. Thirdly, to have an innovative mindset is you need to learn and experiment, because we don't know what works, what might not work. Try out there, make things happen, work with various parties. While working on your experiments to see what might work in the future, we must not forget on security and data privacy. And lastly, okay, to really create an impact, it's important that you focus on creating value and long-term sustainability, long-term edge if you are a company. If you are a public sector, you need to focus on a state where you can create exponential impact. You're not talking about maybe cutting costs by 5%, 10%, to explore how to cut costs by 50%, 70%, because now you are much more digital. So I believe this is the way for us to work. We still need to blend digital and also innovative mindset, because still there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of experimentation that needs to be done. So the first layer, we need to look at it from a policy regulation layer, from a government perspective. Second layer is from corporate policy, but the most important layer is at a personal level. How do I survive? How do I thrive in this state of flux? Right. Thank you, Zainuri. That's my presentation for today.
Thank you very much, Azim. Thank you very much for sharing with us. It's great to see the figures, the numbers, and also the charts, as well as examples that you've been given to the viewers on this reimagining the work in this new norm. You're talking about the platform economy. It's very important. You're talking about the digital enablers for the company to be enable the employees to work in the virtual world. Also, you talk about the performance, how the management should measure the performance of the employees through this data, the algorithm, as well as what is the digital mindsets against versus innovation mindsets. Now we have to combine it. That's very interesting. Yes. That what you mentioned. Okay, we have a few questions from the viewers. Thank you very much, viewers out there, for giving us the questions and also comments. But before that, maybe I would like to get your opinions based on your presentation today, Azim. You mentioned in the earlier presentation, you mentioned about the black swan. Okay, you're talking about the pandemic has been predicted earlier. So, but how did the situations reach this current point, and why did not anyone care, even though it's already predicted, this kind of thing? What is your view on this?
Well, one of the challenges, this was predicted 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I think by Bill Gates, there's a paper with there's a probability that it might happen. So one of the biggest challenges is that with human, okay, there's something called knowing doing gap. You know that something is not good, but you have reluctance. You're not willing to do anything yet because you think, oh, it might not happen to me. I have time to wait before it happens. So not many countries actually saw the urgency until it was too late. It was a paper developed by Salim, by the author of Black Swan. He said that the pandemic should have been crushed when it was at its infancy stage, when it's at the peak level. But the only country which actually took notice was Taiwan. So Taiwan was moving fast enough. They saw the value, they locked down, they did whatever that they could. So they were very successful. But as compared to other countries, they are not ready to face the consequences of taking dramatic action, because it will impact their economy, impact the freedom of their citizen. Because never have there been a pandemic before that has spread this fast. Even though there are many pandemics in the past, it has killed many people, but it has not spread as this. So I think in the future there will be a constant phobia of pandemic because of the scale that we are experiencing.
Thank you, Azim. Thank you for your opinions and your view on this issue. Maybe I should get the questions from the viewers. We have questions from Mr. Mahlok from Malaysia. So it's very interesting. So he would like to know that how can we sustain the workers' living standards? Because we are talking about the changes, remote
Yes.
work, flexibles, and all those things. That how can we sustain the workers' living standard? Is there any effect to their salary and wages? What do you think about this?
I think in certain sector, for example, the tourism sector is extremely difficult. In some cases where it's difficult to salvage the next 1-2 years, what we may need to do, we need to repurpose. I do know in Penang, for example, Penang is popular for tourism. There's a group of tour company. So what they focus on is to do virtual tours, and they focus on virtual tours for students who wants to understand other countries. So they shifted the skill set of their tour guides from actually bringing people on actual tour. They shifted and provided virtual tours, virtual experience as if you are there. So there's two scenarios. Scenario number one, you think that you can have a recovery, and that's when you need to cut costs so that you are able to sustain and grow again when there is a demand. For example, the airline industry, business travel is expected to boom again in 2024. So you need to prepare your resources because there's a growth again. If you don't have enough resources, you may lose out. But in some cases where businesses, the business model is out of date, you don't see a way out 2 years, you just need to repurpose and explore doing other things. And that's what we saw happening in AirAsia. AirAsia, for example, the current analyst report actually valued AirAsia at a very low level because they don't see a way out for AirAsia next 1 to 2 years. But what AirAsia did was to retrain their people to go into new business. They're using their current infrastructure to go into platform businesses, into e-commerce, etc. Because AirAsia's biggest asset is their brand, their database, their infrastructure, but most important is their talent. There's so many interesting stories that what they are trying to do to reconfigure their business to accept to create a new growth area. However, this is not a short-term measure. You won't see the result in 3 months. It might take 6 months to a year before you see the full fruits of it. So as leaders, as a manager, you need to have the courage to allow your business to go down, the old business model to die down naturally while you build the new curve, while you still have the time, resources, but most important, the talent.
Thank you, Azim, for your answer on that wages and salary, whether it's affected or not with this new ways of working. I would like to share with you another interesting questions from the viewers out there from Sato Suzuki. So I guess from Japan. So he mentioned about you said organization need to try new things to check what works or not, but what we see in reality, leaders are reluctant to try. Very interesting. Yes. Leaders are reluctant to try or afraid or confused. So what is your opinion on this?
Okay, one option is when you want to try something new, you need to explore doing something called a prototype or a prototype or pilot. It means when you try something, you're not going to take a lot of risk. You're trying to do things in a small manner. An example, a lot of countries now have got experiments on drones, on autonomous vehicle, because it is highly risky. But when you are doing an experiment, you control the risk of failure. So by using data, by using experiments, then you can see what works, what doesn't work. But the key to success in terms of experimenting is to have a portfolio of experiment. Let's say you have to do 10 experiments, you need to have, let's say, 2 experiments is something very simple. That's a quick win. But maybe you have 4, which is a medium experiment, which is something which has a moderate rate of success. And maybe another 6 is something high risk, but the budget is small. By you having a, what do you call that, a portfolio of experiments, you know that if you were to experiment 6 things, maybe 2 things might work. Based on stats, example, success rate of new projects, new ventures, maybe it's about 10 to 20%. Maybe the more successful one is about 30%. If you only allow one thing to go out there, to be out in the market, you are going to set yourself for failure. But if you run 6 experiments in the market first, see what works, what doesn't, chances are you will have enough data and evidence to see which one you should scale. So you need to have a gradual way of experimenting and trying. I was working for a Japanese company back in 1999 called Nippon Light Metal. I was working in the coatings industry. I was an R&D chemist, Zainuri.
Yep.
My failure rate was actually lower than the Japanese counterpart because they were doing maybe 1,000 experiment on one chemical compound. I only had a budget to do 100 experiments. So chances of my counterpart in Japan coming up with new solution, new chemical compound is higher because they are willing to fail much more. You need to change the word failure to experiments, because in R&D there's a lot of trial and error. The more trial you do, the more experiments you do, chances of you finding something good would be higher. Thank you, Zenri.
Thank you, Azim. So your point here is we have to try. We have to experience. We have to experiment. The more we explore, there's more opportunity for us to come up with the new things, to excel. That's what I mean. Okay, Azim, there's another burning questions to you, talking about the new working style.
Yes.
So we are talking about the mostly private sector, and I think in your presentation you also mentioned about public sector as well, which is now with the pandemic, actually all sectors are affected. There is no single sector not affected by this current situation. So talking about the public sector, public sector, we have they have the structured organizations. So talking about agility with its new changes, remote work. So what is your opinion? What is your view with these changes, with the technological changes for the public sector itself to make a quick adoption for these new things, please?
Okay, thank you, Zainuri. I think we've been working with the public sector for quite some time, looking at how to transform and innovate. So what we saw was that the first agenda in the public sector is to have the mandate. We were involved in creating a new regulatory framework for one of Malaysia's ministry. What was interesting is that we started the project during the pandemic about a year ago. It was a very challenging time for us, because how do we continue working when we are stuck at home? So what we had to do was to get the mandate, to get the permission, for example, from the ministry. From the ministry is what sort of digital tools are we allowed to use? Because there's a lot of circular on what a government body is allowed to use, not allowed to use. What sort of collaboration tool is again allowed to use, not allowed to use. So when we started, we had to explore experimenting. Firstly, how do we collaborate first with our client? Okay,
I see.
using new tools, using WebEx, using Google Slides. We had to find a way to secure the things. And within a short period, we saw people from public sector quickly embraced it. And what we saw, it was extremely efficient. We were having faster meetings, we were having shorter meetings, and we could achieve a lot more. We were doing online collaboration. We were using online tools like Google Slides, Google Excel, so that we can quickly change the way we work. Another area which was also a stretch for us was that in our project, because it's a regulatory framework related, we had to run public consultation. Normally, during public consultation, what we had to do was to have everybody in the same room, had a discussion. So we had to do a virtual public consultation with different stakeholders coming in. Again, it was a new way of doing things, but because the mandate coming from the ministry, the deputy GD was strong. We need to do it. We cannot delay. Make it happen. So everybody followed suit. So my view is that the key to make things happen is, number one, is the mandate coming from the top management. So that's one of the key because of the urgency of matter. Second one is you need to have the authority to make things happen, to allow you to be empowered. But next one is the mechanism. What tools are you going to provide? So for you to be exponential, for you to go digital, and they need to also be trained not on how to use the tools, but to have the right mindset. Okay, how do I approach this in a different manner? How am I creating value? One of the key things that is important, one of the key skill set is to have the mindset of futures thinking. What are the future potential scenario? And secondly, for every action that I take, whether it's a policy, it's a regulation, or an incentive, what is the unintended consequence of doing that? So this is where the concept of exponential government comes in. For example, MPC in Malaysia have got a platform called Unified Public Consultation, where when there is a new regulation which needs to be changed or they're exploring to change, there's actually a channel for the public to address their point of view, to address their concern. So it's something quite democratic, allows people to agree or disagree in a very safe manner. So that is where I see exponential government or government working as platform is already happening, Zainuri. In fact,
Okay.
the concept of government as a platform has been talked about back in 10 years ago by Tim O'Reilly. So it's a very pertinent concept, but the time actually is right for it to be relooked at.
Yeah. So thank you, Azim. So it means that it's no issue for the governments or public sector agencies, to be transformed with these new changes or new working style. Thank you, Azim.
Welcome.
Yeah, talking about the hybrid, we talk about hybrid model, digital plus analog, if you what presented earlier. So some people may argue that this will affect the productivity about this hybrid thing. So what is your view on this? What is your thoughts?
Okay. If it's pure digital, I think it's not sustainable. Because, for example, in my team, we work at a co-working space. There's a lot of space so that there's a good place to have social distancing. Because pure working from home is highly stressful because there's no interaction. And then if you are not provided with the right tools, it's going to be challenging. So if there is no choice for a person to continue working from home, what is important is that the company should have the right policies or incentive to allow people to have the right infrastructure to be working from home. Maybe a certain budget to have proper laptop, to have proper lighting, and to have some form of privacy. So what I hear, and that's not only enough, we also need to look at the downside of being purely digital. So I know one CEO of a public listed company in Malaysia. He has virtual runs with his team members. So they actually go out and run, and everybody has a goal. Okay, I want to run for about 1,000 kilometers collectively. And some companies actually have provided their employees with online healthcare help. So you can have your performance coach. If you're feeling depressed or you're feeling stressed, you have a coach to talk to on the other side. But what is more important is you as a leader, that you are constantly in touch with your own team members, asking them how are they doing, okay, sharing different things. Don't just look at work. But to me, longer term, you need hybrid approach where you need to have satellite offices. For example, you allow, for example, 400 ringgit allowance, 400 US allowance. Your staff is allowed to be at the co-working space for a short period to do your work. But before that can happen, trust needs to be there.
I think, thank you, Azim. So maybe I can go to another point. We are talking about this hybrid,
Yes.
analog and digital. So as you know that teamwork, relationship, interpersonal connection between employees are among the key important factors
Yes.
for productivity enhancement. So, you know, the remote work and all the virtual things obviously reduce the personal interactions on the
Yes.
job. So, how can the organization maintain or even strengthen the connection between the employees by having this kind of depending too much on virtual?
Okay.
What is your view on that?
One of the key things, I think it starts with the leader, is before you start the project, is your purpose needs to be clear. I call it the Aikigai. That means there's an overlap, that each employee knows, okay, what they are good at, okay, what the company is, what they call it, what they are good at, what they are passionate about. And then number 3 is that what is it that the company values you and is willing to pay for it. Once each employee knows their personal Aikigai, they are doing work out of their core. Because when I was working for a project with a client it was a 9 months project. It was very intense. I find that the energy of my people is so high. They say they don't need to go for holiday. They enjoy doing the work. They know what they are doing. Their purpose is clear. We are in crisis mode. But however it is, I insist, okay, you need to have time out. I ask them, okay, what movies have you watched today? So generally, one of the things that I did with my team is that I asked them to watch certain movies. Okay, everybody go and watch Karate Kid Part 1. And then tell me the lessons learned. So I actually structure relaxation time as part of the work. And everybody have got an app allowance. They can buy whatever app that they want, and also give them a Grab allowance that they can buy food. They feel like, oh, I'm stressed, I want to get some food. So I sanction a certain ways to make it feel as if we are still at work. There's still that social interaction. So it's up to not the CEO, but it's up to the leader who faces their employees on a daily basis. How can I make a difference to my team's life, daily work?
Thank you, Azim. So it's very important actually to, as what you said, to maintain, to strengthen the connection, even though we are not physically or we are not faced in the situation where we can have the what should I say, the luxuries to meet each other anymore these days.
Sorry, can I just pause you for a while? I just want to share something. Because the problem that with collaboration tool, because we are using Google Slides, when I go in, I can actually see somebody typing. Okay, what people are doing. And it creates,
it's just like what you are doing WhatsApp, WhatsApp. You know that people are typing, okay.
Yeah, I can see how many person have done that slides, how many slides they've done. I realized that can create a pressure. So what I told my team, okay, we are going to work on a virtual slide, but you work on your own first. Once you are done, then only you paste on the slides. So because you are doing your work, it's not done yet. Because sometimes we don't realize it can create unnecessary pressure. One of my staff will say, "Oh, Azim is there, you better type faster." So we need to realize that if you're working collaboratively, what's your role as a leader? What is it that you don't do, so that you don't put unnecessary pressure on your team members.
Okay, thank you, Azim. I think
Okay.
thank you very much for sharing your views. You make your presentation as well as answering the question from viewers as well as from the from me itself. Now, we would like to ask you. Maybe this is the last one, the
Okay.
last question for you. There's a historian's what's the name? This Noah Harari made a startling prediction that the mass industrializations gave birth to the working class, and the AI revolution will give birth to the new working class. Sorry, unworking class. So do you agree with this? And if it's true, how should the government deal with the new unworking class in the future because of these changes?
Okay. I think this is true for developed economies. Many developed economies, they are using a lot of AI. They are doing a lot of outsourcing work, etc. So there are many ways around it. I think the fundamental way is to reskill. For example, a lot of people say that with the rise of ATM machines, the bank tellers are going to be obsolete, which is true. Now, however, many of them have been retrained and they are into providing services, etc. For those who's willing to change and learn, they actually earn much more than their counterparts. Again, another disruption is coming. As you are aware, many banks around the world actually shutting down the number of branches because people have adopted to digital banks. So what do? You as an employee, you are going to be troubled. What's my next career? What is my future? So this is where the key role of the leader or the manager or even the government is to provide funding and incentive policies to retrain their people who is ready. Because retraining will take maybe 6 months to a year, doing new value-added things using previous experience to move forward. So I see a shift in doing different things. For example, cab drivers are now very rare. Majority of them have become Grab drivers, or they can do Grab delivery or logistics. So they make much more money than they did as taxi drivers. So, but their core skills is the same. They know how to drive. So the role of government, the role of the public sector is to explore how can they reuse the skill. If they are going to retrench the individual, provide them the skill set, provide them the opportunity to be out in the market before you let them go. Because not many industry will survive this pandemic.
Importance of retrain, the reskill of the workers these days is getting more vital. So for the organization, including the government, how to to explore the new areas, how to retrain and reskill the employees with the current pandemic situations. So it's a good opportunity actually for everyone to have the new skills, new knowledge, what actually we can do better compared to before. So Azim, we almost end of the session.
Okay.
It's almost an hour. Yes, we have another 2 or 3 minutes. So most probably, I would like to give you this opportunity to give your final remarks to our viewers out there with regard to our topic today. Azim, please.
Okay. All right. I studied Aikido many years ago. One of the concepts which I learned is in Aikido is to do an irimi tenkan, is to enter and turn. So to survive the pandemic is you need to enter and turn and see the needs of your customers, to see the needs that people you are touching, so that you can see what are the challenges that they are facing. And from there, another mindset which I think is important is to embrace constraint. focus on what is it that you can do, not what you can't do. That's the mindset which I think is critical to survive the pandemic and then post-pandemic period. Thank you, Zainuddin.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Azim. Thank you very much, viewers out there, for being with us for the past 1 hour. And once again, thank you to Azim for joining us, for sharing with us your inspirational message, your views on the topic that we discussed today. So, viewers out there, as I mentioned earlier in the session, that today is 11 May, APO Founding Day. So we celebrate the 60th anniversary this year. So again, happy Productivity Day to all. And before I end this session today, so we just would like to inform viewers out there, if you still have questions or you need the document from us, please send email to the one that's written in the screen, apo-elearning@apo-tokyo.org. So the secretariat will reply with questions, or if you would like to have some materials related to the session today. So this is the end of the APO Productivity Talk today with the topic Reimagining Work in the New Norm with Azim Pawanchik, our guest speaker from Malaysia today. So APO Productivity Talk series will continue every week with many other topics related to productivity enhancement. So we will continue to discuss about the new area, about new business style, new work style. With the current and the post-pandemic, they're talking about what is the solution, what the productivity will affect to the sectoral level, manufacturing, public sector as well. So please continue to support APO Productivity Talk. Please subscribe our APO YouTube channel and follow our social network services as well. We have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And also please get the updated information from the APO website. So until then, Azim, thank you very much. So we wish you one Eid Mubarak, Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri in advance. And to everyone out there, please take care, stay safe during this tough season. Thank you very much, and see you till we meet again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.